My mother-in-law came at me in a stern voice, saying, "I know you cheated. Hand over the land as alimony for the divorce." But my mother-in-law doesn't understand anything. She doesn't even recognize the man standing right in front of her and has no idea who should actually be paying alimony. To reveal the truth, I showed the contents of my phone to the lawyer. "Watch this, now the tables will turn. My name is Jenna. I've been married to Harry for 3 years. I was drawn to his kindness and good nature, which is why I married him. As an only child, Harry was doted on by his mother, and it turns out he has a lot of spoiled habits. Once we got married, it became clear just how much his mother had pampered him. We definitely need to have the best food at the wedding," he said during our wedding planning. "But if we upgraded the food, we'd go over budget and have to cut costs elsewhere." "Harry, I understand, but we need to think about the budget too. Let's lower the food grade a bit this time." As soon as I said that, he became visibly upset. My mother-in-law, Charlotte, noticing his displeasure, quickly intervened. "What are you talking about, Jenna? We should absolutely go with the best food, just like Harry said. This is how it always goes." Charlotte takes Harry's side every single time. "But what about the budget?" I asked. "We can just cut costs elsewhere, like the decorations or the wedding dress." Trying to solve the problem, Harry chimed in with a concerned look. "Hold on, Mom. If we skimp on the decorations, the venue will look terrible, so we really shouldn't cut that budget." Charlotte quickly agreed with him. "You're right, you're so smart, Harry. That means we'll just have to cut Jenna's dress budget." "Yeah, that makes sense. Besides, Jenna looks good in anything." They talked as if it was already decided. It was my favorite dress, one I had tried on multiple times before deciding. But in the end, I had to give up the dress I wanted and redirect the budget to the food and decorations. Even after the wedding, when we started our life together, Charlotte continued to interfere whenever we had something to discuss as a couple. For instance, when we were planning to buy a house, as we had been living in a rented apartment until then, she called us. "Jenna, I heard you're planning to build a new house." "Oh, did Harry tell you?" "Yes, we just found a great piece of land near the station and signed the contract. We're just starting with the house design now. Harry mentioned the location, but isn't that plot too large for just the two of you?" I feared she might suggest we all live together, so I hurriedly added, "But, if we have kids in the future, our family will grow, so I wanted to make sure we have enough room." "Kids? Does that mean you're expecting?" She latched onto the mention of children right away. "Well, I meant someday in the future." "What? Don't get my hopes up for nothing." "Well, even if you do build a new house, I can trust Harry to handle everything. Jenna, just make sure you don't interfere too much, okay?" "Yes, I understand," I replied, giving a vague response and quickly hanging up the phone, letting out a big sigh. It looked like she was going to want to be heavily involved in the new house plans too. I needed to talk to Harry as soon as possible, but lately, he's been coming home so late that we barely have time to talk. I usually fall asleep before he gets home. But that night, I stayed up to discuss the situation with his mother. When he finally got home, he looked startled to see me still awake. "What's going on? You're still up?" "Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about something." As I sat down in front of him, I noticed something. "Hey, Harry, didn't you say you were going out for drinks with your colleagues tonight?" "Yeah, that's right. You don't smell like alcohol at all, though." I leaned in closer to sniff, and instead of alcohol, I caught a faint sweet scent on his suit. He quickly pushed me away in a panic. "I had a burger to sober up. I'm exhausted, so I'm going to take a bath." With that, he hurried off to the bathroom. Suspicious. He's definitely hiding something. A hunch told me to act immediately. I quietly took his phone, which he had left in the bathroom. As expected, it was locked, but knowing Harry, I figured he wouldn't use a complicated passcode. Just as I thought, the lock opened easily when I entered his birthday. What is this? Inside his phone were countless affectionate messages exchanged with another woman. Unforgivable. I quickly set up his phone to sync with mine so I could monitor his messages too. I had heard about sync tools from a friend in passing, but I never imagined they'd be useful in a situation like this. After putting his phone back in place without a trace, I went to the bedroom and checked his messages. That's when I discovered he had been secretly dating another woman for the past year under the pretense of work. You've got some nerve. If that's how Harry wants to play it, then I immediately contacted a friend from college. Hello, Benjamin. It's been a while, but could we meet up sometime soon? The next day, Harry went to work as if nothing had happened, completely unaware that I had seen the contents of his phone. He continued coming home late just as he always did, claiming he was working overtime. But now, I knew the real reason why. I began meeting up with Benjamin whenever Harry stayed out late. On this particular day, Harry had left the house, saying he had to work on the weekend as usual. I arranged to meet Benjamin, and as we walked quietly together, I suddenly heard someone call out from behind us. It was my mother-in-law, Charlotte. Charlotte, what are you doing here? That's my line. What are you doing here? Who is this man? No way, are you having an affair? No, it's not what you think. Shut up. I can't believe you would betray my precious Harry like this. Charlotte shouted angrily. She took me and Benjamin home with her on the spur of the moment. I caught you cheating on my precious son, and you can't get away with it. You better be prepared for the consequences. Charlotte's intensity made Benjamin go quiet. I've just called a lawyer, I know, so stay here quietly, she added, staring at us to make sure we didn't try to escape. When the lawyer arrived, Charlotte began to explain dramatically, listen to me. My daughter-in-law was having an affair with this man in broad daylight. How ungrateful can she be with a husband as fine as my son? The lawyer looked at Charlotte calmly and asked, how can you be sure this is definitely an affair? Charlotte responded with conviction, they were on a date together, and I saw them near the station. It's obvious they were sneaking around, wearing hats and sunglasses. Near the station. Well, that does not conclusively prove cheating, the lawyer said. What? Why not? Charlotte demanded. For a moment, she looked disheartened, but then her eyes brightened as if she had just thought of something. Jenna, show me your phone. What? I replied, bewildered. There must be evidence on your phone. Show it to me. Charlotte insisted. She snatched the phone from me and handed it to the lawyer. I felt cornered but resolute. I turned to my lawyer and said, I'm not going to let them get away with this. Okay, I understand, he said. You can examine all the contents of my phone. We have nothing to hide, I stated confidently. I handed over the password to my lawyer and asked him to review the contents. The lawyer meticulously checked each application, his hand moving slowly until he eventually stopped. Charlotte's hopes rose at his serious expression. This is it. So, you finally found evidence of an affair? Charlotte exclaimed, rubbing up against the lawyer. If you've got proof, then we need to talk. Jenna, you're divorcing Harry. Well, Charlotte, calm down and listen to me, I said. It's too late for excuses now, Jenna. Charlotte interrupted. That's not enough alimony. Harry and I will take the land you bought in front of the station, Charlotte said with a proud smile, then turned to her lawyer, expecting support for her claim. Make sure you get your fee from this cheater, Charlotte demanded. But the lawyer hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. No mercy. cheating on your spouse is the lowest thing a person can do. We're not reducing the alimony by a single cent. That's not the case here, the lawyer interjected. It's not your daughter-in-law who's been unfaithful, it's your son. What? What are you talking about? The messages we found on your daughter-in-law's phone are proof of your son's affair. He's the one who will have to pay alimony. What? She snatched the phone from the lawyer and looked at the messages. These are Harry's messages. Just as she was processing this, Harry walked in. I'm home. What's going on here? He froze in shock, seeing his mother and two strangers in the house. Charlotte approached him, holding my phone. Harry, what is the meaning of this? Isn't that Jenna's phone? Why are my messages on it? So it really was you who sent these? No, wait, Jenna, it's not what you think. He tried desperately to explain, but it was already too late. He continued to defend himself, saying, I was just messing around. Ever since we got married, Jenna hasn't respected me, and these messages were just a way to relieve stress. This isn't proof of an affair. As usual, Charlotte quickly took his side. That's true. Harry has been under a lot of stress from work. He's practically the victim here. Exactly. And who are these people, anyway? Charlotte suddenly remembered the situation and said, That's right. Forget about those messages. I caught Jenna in the act with this man. She's the one who should pay alimony. Harry, you should divorce her immediately, and we'll build a house on that land and live together. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ha! Charlotte, how blind can you be? Excuse me, I pointed at the messages. They made plans to meet and even discussed what happened afterward in those messages. How can you not see that your son is the one who's been cheating? So what? That doesn't give you the right to cheat too. Even if Harry did cheat, you're just as guilty. Unlike Harry, I have nothing to hide. Then who is this man? You wouldn't be sneaking around in disguises if you weren't cheating. You're wrong. He's a private investigator. We went to college together, and he's been helping me gather evidence of Harry's affair. Finally, Benjamin spoke up. Ideally, I should have done the investigation alone, but Jenna insisted on seeing the affair with her own eyes. Since getting spotted by her husband would have blown our cover, I had her wear a disguise. Normally, private investigators don't use such obvious disguises. Hearing this, Harry turned pale. A private investigator? How long have you been watching me? I looked at Harry and said, Since the day you came home smelling like perfume. That's when I checked your phone and confirmed the affair. But no matter how many messages I collected, they weren't enough to be definitive proof, so I asked Benjamin to help me catch you in the act with your lover. I pulled out several photos of Harry from my bag. Thanks to that, I've gathered plenty of evidence. With these, we can prove the affair, right? I turned to the lawyer. The lawyer, suddenly addressed, quickly regained his composure and answered, Yes, with these photos and the messages, there's no way to deny it. So, we can file for divorce and demand alimony, right? Absolutely. Wait. Don't talk about alimony like that, we're still husband and wife, aren't we? I immediately cut him off. You're the one who betrayed me and had an affair. I can't stay married to you. You're really going to throw away our marriage over one mistake? Harry pleaded desperately. Mom, say something. His mother, of course, sided with him. That's right. A marriage shouldn't be so easily broken. You're overreacting, Jenna. Divorce over an affair. That's ridiculous. Overreacting? I asked incredulously. Just a moment ago, you said that cheating on a spouse is the lowest thing a person can do. Why don't you tell Harry the same thing? Well, everyone makes mistakes sometimes, Charlotte stammered. Mistakes? I shot back. Do you really think that excuses it? I fully agree with what you said earlier, cheating is despicable. After the divorce, I'll be taking the land as part of the alimony. Wait. That land belongs to me and Harry, she protested. Didn't you say that the land wouldn't even cover the alimony? Since the lawyer is already here, let's have you sign an agreement right now. I want a legally binding document to make sure there's no escape, I stated firmly. Charlotte, trapped by her own words, fell silent. Harry, seeing his mother unable to speak, started to panic. Mom, why aren't you saying anything? You're supposed to be on my side, he cried out. I looked at Harry and firmly told him, don't think your mom can always protect you. It's time you took responsibility for your own actions. Realizing he couldn't rely on his mother, Harry suddenly turned to me for support. Jenna, I was wrong. You've opened my eyes. From now on, I won't rely on my mom anymore. Let's start over, he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. Excuse me. I replied, incredulous. What on earth are you thinking? I didn't go through all the trouble of disguising myself and gathering evidence just to wake you up. I did it to make sure the divorce goes smoothly. I collected evidence to ensure I get the alimony you owe for your affair. So, you don't love me anymore? He whispered, his voice breaking. Of course not. How could I love someone who cheated on me and betrayed my trust? I said coldly. I then turned to the lawyer and asked, by the way, do you happen to have a divorce form with you? The lawyer, a bit surprised, replied, well, yes, I do. When your mother-in-law asked me to come today, she told me to bring one for you to sign. Thank you, Charlotte, I said with a slight smirk. I'll gladly make use of the divorce papers you had prepared. Right then and there, I had Harry sign the divorce papers and started the process to claim alimony. With both a private investigator and a lawyer present, there was no way he could escape. I immediately went to file the divorce papers, and under the lawyer's supervision, completed the transfer of the property title. The land I received as part of the settlement is too large for one person, but maybe I'll build an apartment complex and become a landlord. At least Harry's affair was exposed before we started building the house. That's something to be thankful for. It seems that this whole ordeal finally made Charlotte realize how wrong she was in raising Harry. After the divorce, she took him back into her home and started disciplining him with a strictness completely opposite to how she had treated him before. My ex-husband has now become a man who constantly looks over his shoulder, afraid of what others think. Judging by that, it's likely that his affair partner has already lost interest in him. With Charlotte always watching him at home, he probably doesn't have time to date anyone anyway. Knowing Charlotte's obsessive nature, it will be a long time before she fully acknowledges her mistakes. When I think about Harry's future, trapped under his mother's control, I realized I didn't need to punish him at all. As for me, this experience has brought Benjamin and me closer. Having seen the darker sides of people, Benjamin has found it hard to trust others, which is why he hasn't married yet. I also still struggle with trusting men, but maybe because of that, we both understand that we must not repeat the same mistakes. Starting a new life with someone like Benjamin might be just what I need. I'm finally able to look forward with hope.
The package sat on my doorstep like a landmine waiting to detonate. No return address, just my name in precise block letters that seemed too deliberate to be casual. I should have known better than to open it, should have trusted that creeping sensation along my spine that whispered something was wrong. My name is Chloe, and until 10 minutes ago I thought I understood my life. Funny how a single USB drive can shatter 28 years of marriage into sharp, glittering pieces. The video plays again on my laptop screen. I can't stop watching it, like pressing on a bruise to make sure it still hurts. Sam, my late husband, sits in an unfamiliar living room, bouncing a toddler on his knee. A woman I've never met leans into the frame, kissing his cheek. The timestamp shows this was filmed just 3 months before his heart attack. Connor needs to see this, I whisper to the empty kitchen, but my hands are already closing the laptop. My older son worshipped his father. This would destroy him just like it's destroying me. My phone buzzes. Speaking of Connor. Mom, Sophie and I were thinking about Dad's old beach house, he says, not bothering with hello. You're not using it, and we could really use the equity for our new place. I grip the counter, knuckles white. The beach house isn't for sale, Connor. We've discussed this. But it's just sitting there empty. Dad would have wanted... Your father wanted a lot of things, I cut in, the bitterness surprising even me. Apparently, he wanted a whole second family none of us knew about. Silence crackles across the line. What are you talking about? Nothing. Forget I said anything. But it's too late. I can hear the shift in his breathing, the way he's already gearing up for an argument. Mum, you can't just say something like that and then, I need to go. I hang up before he can protest, then immediately silence my phone as it starts buzzing again. The doorbell rings, making me jump. Through the peephole, I see Eli, my younger son, shifting from foot to foot on the porch. He's always had an uncanny sense for when something's wrong. I open the door and he takes one look at my face before stepping inside. What happened? Your father. I start, then stop, unsure how to continue. How do you tell your child their dead father had been living a double life? Eli guides me to the couch, his artist's hands gentle on my shoulders. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. I shake my head, reaching for the laptop. Someone sent me this today. I don't know who, but... I open it, start the video again. Eli watches in silence, his face growing paler with each passing second. When it ends, he lets out a long breath. Jesus Christ, Dad. There's more, I say, clicking through the files. Bank statements, years of transfers to an account in their name. Our name, he gave them our name, Eli. They're out there somewhere, living as Mitchells. Connor's going to lose it, Eli murmurs, running a hand through his hair. Especially with the inheritance stuff already. I know. I close the laptop again, suddenly exhausted. And Sophie will make sure he does. Sophie. Eli's voice carries a note of disgust. She's been pushing him about the beach house, hasn't she? I nod, remembering the way Connor's fiancée looked at me during our last family dinner, her smile sharp as a blade. She wants everything she thinks we owe them. And now... I gesture at the laptop. Now I don't even know what we really have anymore. What else was he hiding? Eli takes my hand, squeezing it gently. What are you going to do? I look down at our joined hands, thinking of Sam's other family, of Sophie's manipulative games, of Connor's increasing demands. 28 years of memories shift and reform, taking on new, darker shapes. I'm going to find out exactly what your father left behind, I say finally. And then I'm going to make sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve. 3 days after the video arrived, I sit across from Connor at our family's beach house, watching him pace like a caged animal. The late afternoon sun catches the dust motes he stirs up, making them dance like tiny accusations in the air. You're telling me Dad had another family? And you're just mentioning this now? His voice cracks on the last word. I needed time to process it myself. I run my finger along a scratch in the dining table, remembering Sam teaching Connor to ride his bike on the deck outside. How many other children had he taught to ride bikes? Show me the video again. Connor, show me. He slams his hand on the table, making the crystal vase jump. Sam's mother's vase, another inheritance to fight over. I open the laptop, but before I can press play, Sophie sweeps in through the French doors. Sorry I'm late, traffic was terrible. She kisses Connor's cheek, then freezes, reading the room. What's wrong? Connor gestures at the laptop. Mum's been keeping secrets. Sophie slides into the chair beside him, her manicured hand finding his arm. Perfect nails, perfect clothes, perfect mask of concern. What kind of secrets? I press play instead of answering. Let her see for herself. Let her calculate how this affects her plans. The video plays. Sam laughs on screen, bouncing that unknown child. Sophie's grip on Connor's arm tightens visibly. "Those bank statements," she says when it ends, voice carefully neutral. "How much was he sending them?" Of course, that's her first question. "Enough to buy several beach houses," I reply, watching her face. "So what you're saying is, half of what we thought was our inheritance isn't even ours." Connor runs his hands through his hair, messing it up the way he did as a teenager when stressed about exams. "That's not what I'm saying at all." I close the laptop firmly. "I'm saying we need to take time to understand what this means before making any decisions about property or money." Sophie leans forward. "But surely this changes things legally. If there's another family with claims to the estate—" "There's nothing legal about what Sam did," I cut in, "and I'm still executor of the estate. Which means you get to decide everything," Connor stands abruptly. "Like always." "That's not fair," I start, but Sophie's already speaking over me. "Connor's right, Chloe. You can't expect us to just sit back while you figure things out on your own. We have a right to know what's happening with our future. Our future. Not Connor's future. Ours." The front door opens and Eli walks in, carrying his camera bag. He takes in the scene, Connor's clenched fists, Sophie's predatory posture, my white-knuckled grip on the laptop. "Thought I might find everyone here," he says quietly. "Did you know?" Connor demands. "Did Mom tell you first?" "I found out when she did." Eli sets his bag down carefully. "And before you start yelling, maybe consider that Mom's the victim here too." "The victim?" Sophie's laugh is sharp as broken glass. "She's the one with all the power. She could sell this place tomorrow if she wanted to, couldn't she?" "Is that what this is really about?" I stand slowly. "The beach house?" "Don't twist this around," Connor snaps. "This isn't about the house. It's about you hiding things from us. Again." 3 days, I say. "I waited 3 days to tell you your father had been lying to all of us for years. Forgive me if I needed a moment to breathe before shattering your world too." Silence falls, heavy with unspoken accusations. Sophie breaks it first, her voice honey-sweet with false concern. "Maybe we should all take some time to process this. Connor and I could stay here for a few days, couldn't we, Chloe? It would give us all space to think." I meet her gaze steadily. "The house isn't available." "Mom," Connor starts. "No." My voice is steel now. "This house stays in my name until I decide otherwise. If you want to discuss the rest of the inheritance, we can do that through the lawyers." "Lawyers?" Connor looks stricken. "You're bringing in lawyers now?" "I think that's wise," Sophie says, standing. "Come on, Connor, we should go." I watch them leave, Sophie steering Connor toward the door with a practiced hand. Just before they exit, she glances back at me and for a moment her mask slips. I see calculation in her eyes and something like fear. Eli moves to stand beside me. "You okay?" "No," I answer honestly, "but I will be." "Will?" The private investigator's report lands in my inbox at 3 a.m. I've been waiting for it, unable to sleep, watching the shadows crawl across my ceiling. Sophie's family history unfolds on my screen like a cheap tragedy: foreclosed homes, bankruptcies, and a string of wealthy fiancés who mysteriously lost interest before reaching the altar. Grace calls just after sunrise. "You're sure about this?" My sister-in-law's voice carries the weight of 20 years of friendship. "The report's thorough." I pour coffee with shaking hands. "Sophie's father's company went under last month. They're drowning in debt." "And Connor has no idea?" "He sees what she wants him to see." Just like I did with Sam. The parallel makes my stomach turn. "What are you going to do?" Before I can answer, my doorbell rings. Through the window, I see Sophie standing on my porch, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. "I have to go, she's here." "Who's—" I end the call, tucking my phone away. Sophie doesn't wait for an invitation, striding past me into the foyer. "We need to talk about Connor." "Do we?" I close the door slowly, gathering myself. "Or do we need to talk about your family's financial situation?" She freezes, one hand clutching her designer handbag, a knockoff I now know. I don't know what you mean. Your father's bankruptcy, the foreclosure notices, the pattern of wealthy men who— Stop! Her voice cracks, the perfect facade splintering. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're using my son to save yourself. I love Connor. You love what he represents. I move closer, watching her step back. Security, status, a way out of your family's mess. Like you didn't marry Sam for his money? Her eyes narrow, desperate. Everyone knows you were just a resident when you met. He gave you everything. The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign to my own ears. Is that what you think? I paid for medical school myself. The practice was mine before I met Sam. He didn't give me anything I hadn't already earned. Then why won't you give Connor what he deserves? The beach house. This isn't about the beach house anymore. I pull out my phone, opening the report. Should we talk about David? Or Michael, your other almost fiancés? Colour drains from her face. You had me investigated. Like you investigated me? Don't think I haven't noticed you digging through our financial records, asking questions about Sam's estate. Connor deserves to know what his father did. The other family— Don't. My voice turns to ice. Don't you dare use Sam's mistakes to justify your lies. She straightens, desperation replaced by something harder. If you show Connor that report, I'll tell him everything. About how you're hiding assets, how you knew about the other family for weeks before telling him. 3 days. I waited 3 days. That's not how he'll see it. Her smile turns cruel. He already thinks you're controlling, manipulative. It won't take much to convince him you're the villain here. Get out of my house. Think carefully about your next move, Chloe. She adjusts her fake designer bag. Connor's fragile right now. Finding out about his father broke something in him. Do you really want to break him more? After she leaves, I stand in my kitchen, hands pressed flat against the cool granite counter. My phone buzzes, a text from Eli. Saw Sophie leaving. You okay? I stare at the message, thinking about choices and consequences, about Sam's secrets and Sophie's threats, about Connor, caught between manipulation and truth. My fingers hover over the keyboard, then move decisively. No, I type, but I know what I have to do. I open my email, forward the investigator's report to my lawyer, then start a new message to Connor. The subject line stays blank for a long moment before I type, what you need to know. Sophie's right about one thing. The truth will break him. But sometimes things need to break before they can heal properly. I should know. I'm a doctor, after all. I press send before I can change my mind, then pick up my phone again to call Grace. I'll need allies for what comes next, and she's always been good at picking up pieces. The sun climbs higher outside my window as I wait for the explosion I've just set in motion. Let Sophie play her games. I've spent my life putting people back together. I know exactly how things break. The engagement party invitation arrives like a slap. Cream-coloured cardstock with gold embossing, as fake as everything else about Sophie. I find Connor waiting in my office at the hospital that afternoon, the same invitation crumpled in his fist. You had no right. His voice is eerily calm. No right to investigate her. I continue reviewing my patient charts, letting the familiar medical terminology anchor me. Someone had to. Her family's financial troubles aren't your business. Neither was your father's second family, but here we are. The words escape before I can stop them. Connor slams his hand on my desk, scattering papers. This isn't about Dad, isn't it? I finally look up. You're so desperate to prove you're not him that you can't see you're making the same mistakes. Sophie loves me. Sophie loves money. I pull the investigator's report from my drawer. Did she tell you about David, the hedge fund manager she was engaged to last year? His face pales. That's not. Or Michael, the real estate developer. Both relationships ended when their financial situations changed. I push the file toward him. Read it. Or don't. But don't tell me I had no right to protect my son. Protect me? He laughs, harsh and broken. Like you protected us from knowing about Dad's other family? That was different. Was it? He stands, towering over my desk. You're just like him, controlling everything, deciding what everyone else gets to know. The comparison hits like a physical blow. Before I can respond, my office door opens and Grace steps in, freezing at the tension in the room. I can come back, she starts, but Connor's already moving past her. Don't bother. I was just leaving. He pauses at the door. The engagement party's next Saturday. Don't come. Grace waits until his footsteps fade before speaking. That went well. He's making a mistake. I straighten the scattered papers with shaking hands. Probably. She sits in the chair Connor vacated. But it's his mistake to make. Not if I can stop it. Chloe. Her voice carries a warning. You're walking a dangerous line here. You didn't see the look in Sophie's eyes when I confronted her. She's desperate. And you're not? Grace leans forward. Look at yourself. When's the last time you slept? You're letting this consume you. What else am I supposed to do? Watch her destroy him? Maybe. She holds up a hand when I start to protest. Sometimes we have to let people we love hit bottom before they can see clearly. My phone buzzes. A text from Eli. Sophie's at the beach house with movers. The world tilts sideways. That's impossible. She doesn't have keys. Connor does, Grace says quietly. I'm already grabbing my coat. Grace follows me to the parking lot, sliding into my passenger seat without asking. What are you doing? I demand. Making sure you don't do anything stupid. She buckles her seatbelt pointedly, like Sam would have done. The comparison stings just like Connor's did. I'm nothing like Sam. No, she watches me grip the steering wheel. You're both willing to destroy your family to protect it. We drive in silence, the autumn sun setting behind storm clouds. When we reach the beach house, there's a moving truck in the driveway and Sophie directing men carrying out antiques. My antiques, Sam's mother's antiques. Eli stands on the porch looking lost. I tried to stop them. Connor gave them authorization papers. Where is he? My voice sounds distant to my own ears. Inside with the estate lawyer. Sophie appears in the doorway, triumphant, signing over his portion of the property. It's amazing what people will do for love, isn't it? The world narrows to a single point. Sophie's smiling face, so sure of her victory. Behind me, Grace makes a small sound of warning, but I'm already moving forward, 28 years of betrayal and loss crystallizing into this moment. You want to see what people will do for love? I reach for my phone, Sophie's carefully constructed world about to shatter. Let me show you. Grace's warning echoes in my head as I study the engagement party venue through my car window. The country club's pristine facade masks the storm brewing inside, just like Sophie's perfect smile hides her desperation. You don't have to do this, Eli says from the passenger seat. We could just go home. I check my phone one last time, reviewing the email from Sophie's previous fiancé. His words burn across the screen. She'll destroy everything you love and make you thank her for it. No, I say, tucking the phone away. We're finishing this. Inside, crystal chandeliers throw fractured light across familiar faces. Sophie's parents hover near the bar, their designer clothes as fraudulent as their daughter's smile. Connor stands beside them, champagne in hand, looking lost in his own engagement party. Dr. Mitchell, Sophie materializes beside me, her voice honey-sweet. I didn't expect you to come, given our discussion at the beach house. I wouldn't miss it. I match her tone. Though I notice Sam's mother's silver isn't decorating the tables. Her smile tightens. Connor's lawyer assured us the pieces were part of his inheritance. The lawyer you chose for him, you mean? Before she can respond, Connor appears. Mom, please, not tonight. When then? The words escape before I can stop them. After she's sold everything we have left? Dr. Mitchell. Sophie's father joins us, swaying slightly. Such a pleasure. Sophie tells me you're being very generous with Connor's inheritance. I watch his expensive watch catch the light, probably borrowed, like everything else in their lives. Actually, I wanted to discuss that. The trust fund has some interesting stipulations. Sophie's hand tightens on Connor's arm. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. I pull out my phone. Before we discuss inheritance, maybe we should talk about your father's bankruptcy. Or your previous engagements? The colour drains from Sophie's face. Behind her, her father stumbles backward, knocking into a waiter. Champagne glasses shatter against marble floors. What previous engagements? Connor's voice cuts through the sudden silence. Mom, don't. Eli touches my arm. Not like this. But I'm already pulling up the photos. Sophie with David, with Michael, with each man who thought she loved him until their money ran out. Show him, Sophie. Show him how you really operate. Connor, she's lying. Sophie's voice cracks. She's trying to control you just like she always has. Like Sam controlled me? The words taste like ash. I watched my husband build a second life while I smiled and played the perfect wife. I won't watch my son make the same mistake. Chloe. Grace appears from nowhere, her presence steady. Think about what you're doing. Connor looks between us, confusion giving way to anger. You're all talking about me like I'm not even here, like I can't make my own choices. Because your choices are destroying this family. The words echo across the suddenly silent room. No, Mom. Connor steps back, pulling Sophie with him. You are. The truth of it hits like a physical blow. I look around the room, at the horrified guests, at Eli's pained expression, at Grace's disappointment. I've become exactly what I feared, someone who would burn everything to save it. Sophie sees her advantage and takes it. I think you should leave. Connor, I try one last time, please just look at the evidence. Get out! His voice is ice. Now! I turn to leave, dignity crumbling with each step, but at the door I hear Sophie's father slur loudly. At least we got the beach house before she figured it out. The room freezes. I turn back slowly, watching Connor's face as understanding finally breaks through. What does he mean, got the beach house? He releases Sophie's arm. What did you do? Sophie's mask slips just for a moment. It's enough. I should feel triumphant. Instead, I feel hollow as I watch my son's world crumble, just like mine did with that USB drive. This is what revenge costs. Not just the target, but everyone around them. I'll be at home, I tell him quietly, when you're ready to talk. Outside, the night air feels thick with possibilities and regret. Eli follows me to the car, his silence more eloquent than words. Did I just make everything worse? I ask. He considers for a long moment. Maybe, but at least now everything's true. Truth. Such a simple word for such devastating consequences. I start the car, wondering if Sam felt this same mixture of victory and loss when he started his second family. If he ever understood the real cost of his choices. I'm beginning to. The beach house feels like a tomb in the pre-dawn darkness. I sit at Sam's old desk, surrounded by the wreckage of Sophie's movers, empty spaces where paintings hung, gaps in the shelving where family photos stood. The USB drive that started everything sits beside an unopened bottle of Sam's favourite scotch. My phone lights up. Grace. Connor's looking for Sophie, she says without preamble. She disappeared after the party. Her parents too. Of course they did. I trace the edge of the desk where Connor carved his initials as a child. They got what they wanted. Not everything. The beach house transfer wasn't legal. Your lawyer already filed an injunction. It doesn't matter anymore. I stare at the scotch bottle. I lost him anyway. The front door creaks. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. I know those steps. Heard them stomping upstairs through teenage tantrums, trudging home after football losses, walking away from me at the engagement party. Connor appears in the doorway looking like he's aged years in hours. They're gone, he says, all of them. The apartment's empty. I know. They took everything. His voice cracks. The ring, the money I gave them for the wedding venue, even my car. Connor, don't. He slumps against the doorframe. Just don't say you told me so. I wasn't going to. I push the scotch bottle aside. I was going to say I'm sorry. He laughs, bitter and broken. For what? Being right? Trying to protect me? Or for waiting until I was completely humiliated to do it? The accusation hits home. I thought exposing her would save you. Save me? He straightens, anger flaring. You destroyed me, Mom, in front of everyone we know, just like Dad destroyed you with that video. That's different. Is it? He moves to the window, staring out at the dark ocean. You both decided what everyone else needed to know, when they needed to know it. You controlled the truth just like he did. The parallel steals my breath. Connor, please. I found this in Sophie's things. He pulls out a familiar envelope, the one that held the USB drive. She's the one who sent you the video about Dad's other family. Did you know that? The room tilts sideways. What? She found them months ago. Used it to pressure Dad's lawyer about the inheritance. His laugh is hollow. Guess she learned from the best, right? Using people's secrets against them? I grip the desk edge, remembering Sophie's words at our confrontation. Everyone knows you married Sam for his money. She'd known then. Had orchestrated everything. I was trying to protect you, I whisper. No. Connor turns, his face hard in the dim light. You were trying to win, just like Sophie, just like Dad. And look what it got us. He drops the envelope on the desk. The beach house is yours. Everything's yours. I don't want any of it anymore. Where will you go? Does it matter? He moves toward the door, then pauses. You know what the worst part is? Sophie might have been using me, but at least she was honest about who she was in the end. You're still lying to yourself about what this was really about. The door closes behind him with devastating finality. I sit in the growing dawn, surrounded by the ruins of 2 generations of betrayal. The USB drive glows faintly, a technological ghost holding all our failures. My phone buzzes again, Eli this time. Mom, you okay? I stare at the message, thinking about Sam's secrets, Sophie's manipulations, my own righteous certainty that revenge would heal everything. No, I type back. I don't think I am. The sun rises over the ocean, painting everything in harsh morning light. I open Sam's scotch with shaking hands, pour a measure into his favourite crystal tumbler, one of the few pieces Sophie's movers didn't take. You would have loved this, I tell his empty chair. All of us destroying each other with the truth. Isn't that what you were afraid of? Why you never told us about them? The scotch burns going down. Outside, waves crash against the shore, eternal and indifferent to our human dramas. I pick up the USB drive, turning it in my hands, finally understanding that revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just passes them down, generation after generation. Each of us thinking we're different, we're justified, we're right. Until we're all equally wrong. A week after Connor walks out, I find Sophie waiting in my hospital office. She sits in my chair, perfectly poised, as if she hasn't destroyed everything she touched. Bold of you to come here, I say, closing the door behind me. Desperate times. She gestures to the chair across from her, my guest chair in my office. Please, sit. I remain standing. Where's Connor? Gone. She examines her manicured nails. But you knew that already. The question is, where's the money? What money? Don't play stupid, Chloe. The offshore accounts, Sam's secret investments. Her smile turns sharp. Did you think I only found the video? I found everything. The floor seems to shift beneath my feet. Sam's voice echoes in my memory. Just sign these papers, honey. Trust me to handle the finances. I don't know what you're talking about. No. She pulls out her phone, starts reading. 3 accounts in the Cayman Islands. A shell company in Panama. All technically legal, but messy if the IRS starts asking questions. She looks up. Connor's signature is on half these documents. Did you know that? My blood runs cold. Sam wouldn't what? Set up his son to take the fall if things went wrong? She laughs. You really didn't know him at all, did you? What do you want? A deal. She stands, moving around the desk. You transfer the beach house to Connor. Legally this time, and I'll make sure these documents never reach the authorities. You're blackmailing me with my own son. I learned from the best. She perches on the desk edge. Wasn't that what you did? Used Sam's secrets to control Connor? I was protecting him. So am I. Her voice softens with false sympathy. He's fragile right now, Chloe. Finding out his father made him an unwitting accomplice to tax fraud, it would destroy him. The pieces click together. You planned this from the beginning. The video, the engagement, all of it. Not all of it. You did most of the work yourself, she straightens, smoothing her skirt. Your revenge against me gave me everything I needed. Connor hates you now. He'll believe anything I tell him. He won't. He already has. She holds up her phone, showing me a text conversation. Connor's words blur before my eyes. Mum never cared about protecting me, only about controlling everything. My hands shake as I reach for my own phone. I'm calling security. Go ahead, I'll be gone before they arrive. But these documents? She waves her phone. They'll go straight to the IRS. Your choice, Chloe. The door opens. Eli steps in, camera in hand. Actually, he says quietly, I think we got everything we need. Sophie's mask slips for the first time. What? Did you really think I'd meet you alone? I ask, finding my strength. After everything, you recorded every word. Eli holds up his camera, including the blackmail attempt, the confession about the video, everything. She lunges for the camera. Eli steps back, bumping into Grace as she enters with 2 police officers. Sophie Williams. One officer steps forward. We'd like to ask you some questions about fraud and extortion. You can't prove anything. But her voice wavers. Actually, Grace says, we can. The offshore accounts. They don't exist. Sam was many things, but he never involved Connor in anything illegal. You played your hand too hard. I watch Sophie's perfect facade crumble as the officers lead her away. Her final glare holds more venom than any snake. Connor, she says, pausing at the door. He'll never forgive you for this. Maybe not. I meet her gaze steadily, but at least he'll be free of both our manipulations. After she's gone, I sink into my chair, in my office. Eli puts his hand on my shoulder. You okay? No. I look up at my children, one here, one lost to the aftermath of all our choices. But maybe now we can start being honest about why. Grace picks up Sophie's abandoned phone. Should we call Connor? Not yet. I think of Sam, of Sophie, of all the secrets we keep thinking they'll protect the ones we love. He needs to find his own truth first. We all do. Outside my office window, the sun breaks through storm clouds. Not an ending, not really, but maybe, finally, a chance to begin again. Without secrets, without revenge, without the shadows we cast trying to protect each other from the light. The beach house looks different in winter. Waves crash against the shore, darker and more insistent than the summer swells. I'm packing Sam's old desk when I hear footsteps on the porch, too heavy for Eli, too hesitant for Grace. Connor stands in the doorway thinner than I remember, shadows under his eyes that weren't there before. The door was unlocked, he says. It always is. I continue sorting papers, giving him space to find his words. He moves to the window where the antique vase sits, the one Sophie's movers tried to take. You're selling it then? Converting it. I close a drawer. Eli's turning it into an art gallery. His work deserves to be seen. And your practice? Retired last month. I watch his reflection in the window. Turns out revenge is exhausting work. He turns, almost smiling. That's why you're giving up the beach house? Tired of fighting? No. I meet his eyes. I'm giving up the idea that holding on to things means holding on to people. Silence stretches between us, filled with waves and winter wind. Connor picks up a framed photo, him and Eli as children, building sandcastles where the gallery will soon stand. Sophie took a plea deal, he says finally. She's paying restitution to her other victims. I know. Did you know about them? Before? Not all of them. I move to stand beside him. Just like your father's other family. We see what we choose to see. He sets the photo down carefully. I found them, you know. Dad's other kids. He swallows hard. They're good people. They didn't ask for any of this either. None of us did. I was so angry at you, he says, for exposing Sophie, for trying to control everything, but then I realized I was really angry at myself for being just like Dad, for needing someone else to save me from my own choices. Connor, let me finish. His voice shakes. I understand now why he kept secrets, why you exposed them, why Sophie tried to destroy us all. We were all just scared of losing control. I think of Sam's video, of Sophie's threats, of my own desperate need to protect my son from truths he needed to find himself. The gallery opening is next month, I say. Eli's featuring a series about family, about the shadows we cast trying to protect each other from the light. Subtle little brother. But Connor's almost smile returns. Will you be there? Yes. I touch the photo frame. Will you? He's quiet for a long moment. I'm not ready to move back. I need to figure out who I am without everyone else's expectations. I know. But maybe, he straightens. Maybe I could come to the opening, see what Eli's done with the place. He'd like that. I turn to face him fully. I would too. The doorbell rings. Eli, right on time. Connor steps back, moving toward the side door. I should go. Connor, I catch his arm. The door's always unlocked, remember that. He nods once, then slips out into the winter afternoon. Through the window, I watch him pause at the edge of the property, looking back at the house, at the ocean, at the life we're all slowly learning to rebuild. Eli enters, carrying paint samples and renovation plans. Was that? Yes. Is he okay? No. I pick up the photo of my sons in happier days. But maybe that's okay too. We all need to break before we can heal differently. Deep thoughts for a gallery renovation? Eli teases, but his eyes are understanding. Speaking of renovation, I hand him an envelope. This came yesterday from Sam's other family. He reads quickly, eyes widening. They want to invest in the gallery? They want to be part of something honest. I look around the room, seeing not what was lost, but what might be built in its place. Something that acknowledges all our shadows while letting in new light. Outside, the winter sun breaks through clouds, casting long shadows across the beach. Soon this room will be filled with Eli's art, with new memories, with truths we're finally strong enough to face. The waves keep crashing, eternal and indifferent. But in their rhythm I hear something I've been missing, not an ending but a transformation. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Sometimes that's enough.
I smoothed my apron and took a deep breath, steeling myself for another Sunday dinner with Gloria. The aroma of roast chicken filled the kitchen, but my stomach churned with dread. Emily, dear, are you sure you used enough seasoning? Gloria's syrupy voice drifted in from the dining room. The last time it was so bland. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to remind her that she'd praised that very same chicken recipe just last month. I'm sure it'll be delicious, Gloria. I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. Aaron appeared in the doorway, his brow furrowed. Need any help, honey? I shook my head, offering a tight smile. I've got it under control. Why don't you keep your mother company? He hesitated, clearly sensing the tension. You know, Mom means well. She just... Aaron! Gloria's voice cut through our conversation like a knife. Come tell me about that big project at work. Emily can manage in the kitchen, I'm sure. I watched my husband's shoulders slump as he turned away, leaving me alone with my simmering resentment. As I carried the platter to the dining room, I caught sight of my reflection in the hall mirror. At 35, I looked older than my years, worry lines etched around my eyes. There she is! Gloria beamed, her perfectly coiffed silver hair gleaming in the soft light. I was beginning to wonder if we'd eat before midnight. I set the platter down, forcing a laugh. Oh, Gloria, you're such a kidder. Aaron cleared his throat. It looks great, Em, doesn't it, Mom? Gloria peered at the chicken, her nose wrinkling slightly. Well, it certainly looks interesting. Did you try that new recipe I sent you? Actually, because I specifically remember telling you how much Aaron loves lemon and rosemary. Didn't I, darling? Aaron shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mom, Emily's chicken is always delicious. Let's just enjoy the meal, okay? I sat down, my hands shaking slightly as I reached for the serving spoon. The meal progressed with Gloria peppering Aaron with questions about work, barely acknowledging my presence except to make thinly veiled criticisms about the food or the state of the house. "You know, Emily," Gloria said, dabbing at her mouth with a napkin, "I was talking to my friend Marge the other day. Her daughter-in-law works full-time and still manages to keep a spotless home. I don't know how she does it." I gripped my fork tighter. "Well, It's probably because she doesn't have children yet," Gloria continued, her eyes boring into mine. "Speaking of which, when are you two planning on giving me some grandchildren? I'm not getting any younger, you know." The room fell silent. I looked to Aaron, silently pleading for support, but he stared down at his plate. "We're still discussing it," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Gloria squeaked. "Well, don't wait too long. Tick-tock, dear." I abruptly stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me, I need some air." I fled to the back porch, gulping in the cool evening air. Tears pricked at my eyes as I leaned against the railing, wondering how much longer I could endure this weekly torment. The screen door creaked open behind me. Aaron's voice was soft, hesitant. I turned to face him, no longer able to hide my distress. "I can't do this anymore, Aaron. Your mother, she's—" I know," he said, running a hand through his hair. "She can be a bit much, but she loves us in her own way." I shook my head, frustration bubbling up inside me. "Love? Is that what you call it? She criticizes everything I do, makes me feel worthless in my own home. And you just sit there and let it happen." Aaron's face fell. "That's not fair, Em. I'm trying to keep the peace. What do you want me to do? Choose between my wife and my mother?" The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Before I could respond, Gloria's voice rang out from inside. "Aaron? Emily? Where did you two run off to? The dishes won't do themselves, you know." I closed my eyes, feeling the last of my resolve crumble. When I opened them again, I saw the conflict etched on Aaron's face. In that moment, I realized that our marriage had become a battlefield, with Gloria as the opposing general. And I was losing the war. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, but its warmth did nothing to ease the chill that had settled between Aaron and me since last night's disastrous dinner. I mechanically flipped pancakes, my mind racing with unspoken words and simmering frustrations. Aaron shuffled into the kitchen, his tie askew. "Morning, Em," he mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. I turned to face him, spatula in hand. "We need to talk about last night." He sighed, shoulders slumping. "Can't we just forget about it? Mom didn't mean—" The doorbell's shrill ring cut him off. We exchanged puzzled glances before Aaron went to answer it. "Mom?" I heard him say, surprise evident in his voice. "What are you doing here so early?" My stomach dropped as Gloria's voice carried through the house. "Can't a mother visit her son without an interrogation?" "I brought breakfast." I gripped the counter, willing myself to stay calm as they entered the kitchen. Gloria breezed past me, setting a bakery box on the table. "Oh, Emily, dear, you didn't need to cook. I brought those croissants Aaron loves." She wrinkled her nose at my pancakes. "Though I suppose we could have both. Wouldn't want your efforts to go to waste." I plastered on a smile. "How thoughtful of you, Gloria." Aaron cleared his throat. "Mom, this is unexpected. Emily and I were just about to—" "Nonsense," Gloria interrupted, waving a manicured hand. "I have wonderful news that simply couldn't wait." She beamed at us both. "I've decided to move closer. I found the most darling little house just 3 blocks away. Won't that be lovely?" The spatula clattered to the floor. Aaron's face paled as he looked at me, then back to his mother. "Mom, that's quite a decision. Are you sure?" Gloria's eyes narrowed. "Of course I'm sure. Don't you want me nearby? Especially when you two finally decide to give me grandchildren." She turned to me, her gaze sharp. "Speaking of which, Emily, have you seen a doctor about your situation? At your age, fertility can be such a concern." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the counter, feeling as if the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. We. "Mom," Aaron interjected, his voice strained. "Emily and I haven't decided about children yet. It's a big decision." Gloria's laugh was like glass shattering. "Oh, Aaron, you're not getting any younger either, you know. And Emily, well," she gave me a pitying look. "Tick-tock, dear." Something inside me snapped. "That's enough!" I shouted, surprising even myself. "I will not be bullied in my own home. Our family planning is none of your business, Gloria." The room fell silent. Aaron stared at me, wide-eyed, while Gloria's face flushed an angry red. "Well, I never," she huffed. "Aaron, are you going to let her speak to me like that?" I turned to my husband, silently pleading for support. He looked between us, conflict etched on his face. "Mom, Emily's right. We need some space to make these decisions on our own." Gloria's eyes filled with tears. "My own son, turning against me, after all I've sacrificed for you." She gathered her purse, heading for the door. "I suppose I'll just go home and die alone, shall I?" As the door slammed behind her, Aaron slumped into a chair. "God, Em, what are we going to do?" I sank down beside him, emotionally drained. "I don't know, Aaron, but something has to change. I can't live like this anymore." He reached for my hand, his touch hesitant. Maybe we should start trying. For a baby, I mean. It might make things easier with Mom." I jerked my hand away, stung. "Is that what you want? To have a child just to appease your mother?" Aaron's face crumpled. "No, I don't know what I want anymore." As I looked at my husband, the man I loved, but who seemed increasingly like a stranger, a cold realization washed over me. Our marriage was hanging by a thread, and Gloria's scissors were poised to snip it. "Aaron," I said softly, my heart breaking, "we need help. Real help. Or I don't think we're going to make it." His silence was deafening, and in that moment, I felt more alone than ever before. The weeks following Gloria's announcement of her impending move blurred together in a haze of tension and unspoken resentment. I found myself withdrawing, spending more time alone in our bedroom, away from Aaron's conflicted gaze and the constant reminders of our crumbling marriage. One particularly gloomy afternoon, I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the pregnancy test in my trembling hands. 2 pink lines stared back at me, undeniable and life-altering. "Emily?" Aaron's voice called from the hallway. "Are you okay? You've been in there a while?" I opened the door, my face a mask of shock. "I'm pregnant," I whispered. Aaron's eyes widened, a mix of emotions flashing across his face. "Are you sure?" I nodded, holding up the test. "I've been feeling off for weeks. I thought it was just stress, but..." He reached for me, then hesitated. "This is... wow. I mean, it's what Mom wanted, right?" His words hit me like a slap. "What your mother wanted? Is that all you can think about?" Aaron backpedaled. "No, I didn't mean..." "Save it," I snapped, pushing past him. "I need some air." I grabbed my keys and stormed out, ignoring Aaron's calls behind me. The cool autumn air hit my face as I walked aimlessly through our neighborhood, my mind reeling. A baby. Our baby. The one thing that should have brought us closer was instead highlighting the chasm between us. Lost in thought, I didn't notice the familiar car pulling up beside me until I heard her voice. "Emily, what on earth are you doing out here alone?" I turned to see Gloria, her face a picture of exaggerated concern. "Just taking a walk," I muttered. She clucked her tongue. "Nonsense. Get in. I'll drive you home." Too exhausted to argue, I slid into the passenger's seat. Gloria chatted away, filling me in on her moving plans and the latest neighborhood gossip. I stared out the window, my hand unconsciously resting on my still flat stomach. "Emily?" Gloria's voice cut through my reverie. "Are you even listening to me?" I turned to face her, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of my secret. "I'm pregnant," I blurted out. Gloria's car swerved slightly before she regained control. "What did you say?" "I'm pregnant," I repeated, my voice stronger. "Aaron and I are having a baby." The car screeched to a halt as Gloria pulled over. She turned to me, her eyes gleaming with a mix of triumph and calculation. "Oh, Emily, this is wonderful news. I knew you two would come around eventually. Have you told Aaron yet? Oh, we must start planning immediately. I have so many ideas for the nursery. Of course, I'll need to be there every step of the way to guide you. First-time mothers need all the help they can get, you know." Her words washed over me in a suffocating wave. This moment, which should have been filled with joy and excitement, felt tainted by Gloria's presumptuous planning and barely concealed criticism. "Gloria," I interrupted, my voice shaking. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Aaron and I need to process this ourselves first. We'll make our own decisions about the baby." Her face hardened. "Now, Emily, don't be foolish. You clearly need guidance. Why, when I was pregnant with Aaron..." "Stop," I shouted, surprising us both. "This is not about you, Gloria. This is about me, Aaron, and our child, our family." Gloria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Family? I am family, Emily. More so than you, it seems. Aaron will want me involved, you'll see." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Aaron. Where are you? Mom's here, looking for you. She seems upset. I looked up to see we were parked in front of our house, Aaron standing on the porch with a confused expression. Gloria was already out of the car, striding towards him with purpose. Aaron, darling, she called out. Emily has the most wonderful news. I scrambled out of the car, my heart pounding. Gloria, don't... But it was too late. As I watched Gloria embrace Aaron, whispering in his ear, I saw the future I had imagined for us slipping away. Our joyous announcement, our private celebration, all stolen in an instant. Aaron's eyes met mine over Gloria's shoulder, a mix of confusion, joy, and something else I couldn't quite name. In that moment, I realized that my pregnancy wasn't just the beginning of a new life. It was the catalyst that would either save our marriage or destroy it completely. As my pregnancy progressed, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The joy of impending motherhood was constantly overshadowed by the growing distance between Aaron and me. Even more surprising was Gloria's sudden change in behavior. Emily, dear, you simply must put your feet up, Gloria cooed, fluffing a pillow behind me. In my day, we knew the importance of rest for expectant mothers. I blinked in confusion, unused to this new, attentive version of my mother-in-law. Thank you, Gloria. That's thoughtful of you. She beamed, patting my hand. Anything for my grandbaby. Now, let me fetch you some herbal tea. It's excellent for morning sickness. As Gloria bustled off to the kitchen, I caught Aaron's eye. He shrugged, looking as bewildered as I felt. I guess the baby news really changed things, he said, a hint of relief in his voice. I nodded, unsure how to feel about this unexpected turn of events. Part of me was grateful for the reprieve from Gloria's constant criticism, but another part remained wary, waiting for the other shoe to drop. As the weeks passed, Gloria's overbearing attentiveness began to grate on my nerves. She was constantly at our house, offering unsolicited advice and making plans for the baby's future. Meanwhile, Aaron grew increasingly distant, often working late and seeming distracted when he was home. One evening, as I sat alone in the nursery we'd begun to prepare, I heard Aaron's key in the lock. Glancing at the clock, I frowned. It was past 10 p.m., another late night at the office. Aaron called out softly. You still up? I waddled out to the hallway, one hand on my growing belly. Hey, I said, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. Long day? He nodded, avoiding my eyes. Yeah, big project. Sorry I missed dinner. Again, I added, unable to keep the bitterness from my tone. Aaron sighed, running a hand through his hair. I said I was sorry, Em. What more do you want? I want my husband back, I exploded, months of frustration boiling over. I want the man who used to be excited about our baby, who used to talk to me, who used to. I trailed off, choking back a sob. Aaron's face crumpled. Em, I'm trying. It's just, there's a lot of pressure at work, and with Mom always around. Don't blame this on your mother, I snapped. She may be overbearing, but at least she's here. Where are you, Aaron? Because it sure doesn't feel like you're in this with me. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my coat and keys. Emily, wait. But I was already out the door, tears blurring my vision as I made my way to the car. I drove aimlessly, eventually finding myself at a small park near our house. Sitting on a bench, I watched young families playing, their laughter a stark contrast to the heaviness in my heart. My phone buzzed insistently. Thinking it was Aaron, I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was a text from an unknown number. Your husband isn't working late. He's with her again. Lincoln Hotel, room 302. See for yourself. My blood ran cold. With trembling hands, I started the car and drove to the hotel, my mind racing with possibilities, each worse than the last. As I approached room 302, I heard muffled laughter. Aaron's laugh, followed by a woman's voice I didn't recognize. I stood frozen, my hand poised to knock, when suddenly the door swung open. Aaron stood there, his shirt untucked, lipstick on his collar. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of a young woman hastily buttoning her blouse. Our eyes met, and in that moment, my world shattered. Emily, Aaron gasped, his face draining of color. I can explain. But I was already running, one hand protectively cradling my belly, the other wiping away hot tears of betrayal. As I drove home in a daze, one thought crystallized in my mind. I had to protect myself and my baby, no matter the cost. The life I had known was over. Now, I had to figure out how to build a new one from the ashes of betrayal. The days following my discovery of Aaron's infidelity passed in a blur of numbness and disbelief. I wandered our house like a ghost, mechanically going through the motions of daily life while my mind raced with unanswered questions and suppressed rage. Aaron's desperate attempts to explain and apologize fell on deaf ears. I couldn't bear to look at him, let alone listen to his excuses. Gloria, sensing the tension but unaware of its cause, hovered anxiously, her newfound solicitousness now grating on my last nerve. One afternoon, as I sat in the nursery folding tiny onesies, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Cafe at 3 p.m. if you want to know the whole truth." My heart raced. Could this be the same person who had tipped me off about Aaron's affair? Despite my better judgment, I found myself driving to the cafe, curiosity and desperation overriding caution. As I entered, a young woman with sleek blonde hair waved me over. My stomach clenched as I recognized her from the hotel room. "Emily," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I'm Samantha. Thank you for coming." I sat down stiffly, my hands protectively cradling my belly. "Why did you want to meet?" Samantha sighed, pushing a folder across the table. "Because you deserve to know everything. Aaron's been lying to both of us." With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Inside were photos, receipts, and printed emails documenting Aaron's affair, not just with Samantha, but with multiple women over the past year. "He told me he was separated," Samantha explained, her eyes brimming with tears. "When I found out about you and the baby, I knew I had to come clean." I stared at the evidence, feeling as if the ground had opened up beneath me. How long have you known?" "A few weeks," she admitted. "I've been gathering evidence." "Emily, there's more you need to know. Aaron's been embezzling from his company to fund these affairs. He's in deep trouble, and I'm afraid he might try to pin it on me." My mind reeled. The Aaron I thought I knew, my loving, supportive husband, was a complete stranger. A liar, a cheater, and now a thief. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Samantha reached across the table, hesitating before placing her hand on mine. "Because I was wrong to get involved with a married man, and I want to make it right. You need to protect yourself and your baby, Emily." As I drove home, my emotions swung wildly between devastation and fury. How could Aaron do this to us? To our unborn child? And how had I been so blind? Entering our house, I found Aaron and Gloria in the living room, their hushed conversations stopping abruptly at my appearance. "Emily, honey?" Gloria cooed, her saccharine tone setting my teeth on edge. "Where have you been? We've been so worried." I ignored her, fixing my gaze on Aaron. "We need to talk. Now." Gloria started to protest, but Aaron cut her off. "Mom, please, give us some privacy." As soon as we were alone, I slammed the folder down on the coffee table. "Explain this," I hissed. Aaron's face drained of color as he flipped through the contents. I can explain." "Explain what?" I exploded. "How you've been cheating on me for a year? How you've been stealing from your company? How you've lied to me every single day?" He reached for me, but I recoiled. "Emily, please. I made mistakes, but I love you. We can work this out." I laughed bitterly. "Work it out? There's nothing left to work out, Aaron. It's over." "You can't mean that," he pleaded. "Think about the baby. We're a family." The mention of our child ignited a fierce protectiveness within me. "That's exactly what I'm thinking about. Our baby deserves better than a lying, cheating father." Aaron's face hardened. "You can't take my child away from me. If you try to leave, I'll fight you for custody. Who do you think the courts will favor, a successful businessman or an unemployed housewife?" His threat hung in the air between us, and in that moment, I knew I had to be smarter than him. I couldn't let him know my next move. Forcing tears to my eyes, I softened my voice. "You're right. I'm just upset. We should talk about this when we're both calmer." Relief washed over Aaron's face. "Of course, Em. We'll figure this out together." As he pulled me into an embrace, my mind was already formulating a plan. I would play the forgiving wife, but in secret I would prepare for war. For the sake of my child, I would take down Aaron and Gloria, no matter the cost. The game had changed, and I was determined to win. The weeks following my discovery of Aaron's betrayal were a masterclass in deception. I played the role of the forgiving wife to perfection, all while secretly preparing my escape. Every gentle touch from Aaron, every sympathetic glance from Gloria only fueled my determination to break free. As my pregnancy progressed, I focused on gathering evidence. Late at night, I combed through financial records, documented Aaron's absences, and built a case that would ensure my freedom and my child's future. The weight of my secret felt crushing at times, but the life growing inside me gave me strength. Then, during a routine checkup, my world shifted again. "Mrs. Thompson," the ultrasound technician said, her voice filled with excitement, "I have wonderful news. You're having twins." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Twins. 2 precious lives depending on me. As joy and terror warred within me, I realized the stakes had just doubled. Leaving the clinic in a daze, I nearly collided with Gloria, who was waiting in the parking lot. "Emily, dear, how was your appointment?" she chirped, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I hesitated, then made a split-second decision. "It's twins," I said, watching her reaction carefully. Gloria's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Twins? Oh, this is marvelous. Aaron will be overjoyed. We must start planning immediately. I'll call the country club, book the perfect baby shower venue, and of course you'll need my help more than ever now. I'll just have to move in to assist with the babies." As Gloria rambled on, making plans for my future, our future, without a second thought to my input, something inside me snapped. The facade I'd carefully maintained for weeks crumbled. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Gloria paused mid-sentence. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said no," I repeated louder this time. "You won't be moving in, you won't be planning my baby shower, and you certainly won't be making decisions about my children's future." Gloria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Now, Emily, don't be foolish. You clearly can't handle twins on your own. Aaron and I—" "Aaron?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the man who's been cheating on me for the past year? The one who's been embezzling from his company to fund his affairs?" Gloria's face paled. "What are you talking about? That's preposterous." I pulled out my phone, showing her the evidence I'd gathered. "It's all true, Gloria. Your perfect son isn't so perfect after all." As Gloria sputtered and denied, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. "I'm leaving him, Gloria. I'm taking my babies and starting a new life, far away from you and Aaron." Gloria's shock quickly turned to rage. "You ungrateful little tramp, after everything we've done for you, you'll never get away with this. We'll fight you for custody. You'll have nothing." Her words hit me like a physical blow, but I stood my ground. "Try it," I hissed. "I have enough evidence to bury Aaron. One word from me and his career, his reputation, everything will be destroyed." As I turned to leave, Gloria grabbed my arm. "You can't do this to us. To Aaron. He loves you." I wrenched my arm free. "Love? Is that what you call lying, cheating, and stealing? No, Gloria. That's not love, and I won't let my children grow up thinking it is." Driving home, my emotions swung wildly between elation and despair. The knowledge that I was carrying twins, 2 precious lives depending on me, filled me with a fierce, protective love. But the reality of my situation, a failing marriage, a deceitful husband, and a vindictive mother-in-law, threatened to overwhelm me. As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Aaron's car. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. I had to tell him about the twins, had to gauge his reaction. It would be the final test, the moment that would determine whether there was anything left to salvage or if I needed to accelerate my plans to leave. With trembling hands, I opened the front door, the weight of my future and my children's future heavy on my shoulders. Whatever happened next would change everything. There was no turning back now. The confrontation with Aaron about the twins had been the final straw. His initial joy quickly morphed into panic about finances and how this would affect his freedom. In that moment, I knew there was no future for us. With shaking hands, I packed a small bag and drove to my parents' house, tears blurring my vision the entire way. Mom opened the door, her smile fading as she took in my disheveled appearance. "Emily, sweetheart, what's wrong?" I collapsed into her arms, sobs racking my body. Dad appeared behind her, his face etched with concern. They ushered me inside, and through broken sobs, I poured out the whole sordid tale. Aaron's affairs, the embezzlement, Gloria's manipulations, and finally the twins. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry. We had no idea." Dad's face darkened with anger. "That son of a— I'll kill him." I shook my head vehemently. "No, Dad, I need to handle this myself, for the babies." They exchanged a worried glance before Mom asked, "What are you going to do?" Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself. I'm going to divorce him, after the twins are born. The words hung heavy in the air. My parents, shocked into silence, simply held me as I cried. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. My parents rallied around me, helping me contact lawyers and make plans for the future. Aaron called incessantly, alternating between tearful apologies and angry threats. I let them all go to voicemail, focusing instead on my health and the babies growing inside me. As my due date approached, the stress began to take its toll. My blood pressure spiked and the doctor ordered bed rest. Confined to my childhood bedroom, I felt like a prisoner in my own body, my mind racing with worries about the future. One afternoon, as I lay trying to nap, I heard raised voices downstairs. Curious, I crept to the top of the stairs, my heart pounding as I recognized the voices. "How dare you show up here?" Dad's voice boomed. "After what you've done to our daughter." "Please, Mr. Johnson," Aaron pleaded. "I just want to talk to Emily, to make things right." "There's nothing to make right," Mom interjected, her usually gentle voice hard as steel. "You've done enough damage. Leave before we call the police." "You can't keep me from my children," Aaron shouted. "I have rights." I gripped the banister, my knees weak. How dare he? After everything he'd done, he thought he had rights? Suddenly, a sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. Another pain followed, more intense than the first. "Mom," I called out, my voice strained. "Dad." The arguing voices below fell silent. Then a flurry of footsteps on the stairs. "Emily?" Mom's worried face appeared. "Oh, God, are you in labor?" I nodded, unable to speak through the pain. Dad appeared behind her side, his face pale. "I'm calling an ambulance," he said, pulling out his phone. "No." Aaron's voice came from behind them. "I'll drive. It'll be faster." For a moment we all froze, the tension palpable. Then another contraction hit, and I cried out in pain. "Fine," Dad growled, "but I'm coming with you." The drive to the hospital was a blur of pain and fear. Aaron kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, his face a mask of worry and guilt. Dad sat beside me in the back seat, holding my hand and murmuring words of encouragement. As we pulled up to the emergency entrance, a terrifying thought struck me. What if Aaron tried to take the babies? What if he and Gloria conspired to keep them from me? Panic seized me, making it hard to breathe. "Dad," I gasped. "Don't let him near the babies. Promise me." Dad's eyes met mine, understanding dawning in them. He nodded solemnly. "I promise, sweetheart. He won't get near them." As the nurses wheeled me into the delivery room, I caught one last glimpse of Aaron's face, a mixture of longing, regret, and something that looked almost like determination. In that moment, I knew that the real battle was just beginning. The doors swung shut behind me, and I steeled myself for what was to come. My children's future hung in the balance, and I was determined to fight with everything I had to protect them, no matter the cost. 3 months after the twins' birth, I stood at the front door of what was once my home, my heart pounding. Dad waited in the car with the babies, ready to intervene if needed. With a deep breath, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet as I made my way to the bedroom, filling a suitcase with my remaining belongings. As I reached for a photo album on the top shelf, a stack of papers tumbled down. Curious, I picked them up, my blood running cold as I realized what they were. More evidence of Aaron's affairs and financial misdeeds. "Emily?" Aaron's voice startled me. I spun around to see him and Gloria in the doorway, their faces a mix of surprise and anger. "What are you doing here?" Gloria demanded, her eyes narrowing as she spotted the suitcase. I straightened my spine, clutching the papers. "I'm getting my things. I'm leaving, Aaron, for good this time." Aaron's face darkened. "You can't take my children away from me. I won't let you." "Your children?" I laughed bitterly. "The ones you've barely seen since they were born? The ones you were ready to abandon when you found out I was having twins?" Gloria gasped, turning to Aaron. "What is she talking about?" I held up the papers. "Why don't you ask your perfect son about his affairs? Or about the money he's been embezzling from his company?" Aaron lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers, but I was quicker. "Emily, you don't understand. I can explain." "Explain what?" I shouted. Years of pent-up frustration pouring out. How you lied to me, cheated on me, made me feel worthless in my own home. Gloria's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" "No," I cut her off. "I'm done being silent, done being the perfect, obedient wife. I'm taking my children and starting a new life, away from your manipulation and Aaron's lies." Aaron's demeanor suddenly changed, his voice turning cold. "If you walk out that door, I'll destroy you. I'll take the twins, ruin your reputation. You'll have nothing." For a moment, fear gripped me. Then I remembered the strength I'd found in myself, the love I had for my children. I stood taller, meeting his gaze. "Try it," I said, my voice steady. "I have enough evidence to bury you, Aaron. One word from me, and your career, your reputation, everything you care about, will be gone." Gloria stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet. "Now, Emily, let's not be hasty. We're family. We can work this out." I turned to her, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. "Family? Is that what you call this? You've done nothing but undermine and belittle me from the day I married your son. Well, it ends now." I grabbed my suitcase, pushing past them towards the door. Aaron grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight. "You can't do this to me," he hissed. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I wrenched my arm free and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed through the room, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. "Watch me," I said, my voice low and dangerous. As I walked out the front door, I heard Gloria wailing and Aaron calling my name. But I didn't look back. Dad was waiting, a proud smile on his face as he helped me into the car. Looking at my sleeping twins in the back seat, a wave of peace washed over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years I felt truly free. "Ready to go home?" Dad asked gently. I nodded, a small smile playing on my lips. "More than ready." As we drove away, I caught a final glimpse of Aaron and Gloria in the rearview mirror, standing shell-shocked on the front porch. The sight that once would have filled me with dread now only strengthened my resolve. I had survived their manipulation, their lies, and their attempts to break me. I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to create a beautiful life for myself and my children. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, a fighter, and a mother who would move mountains for her children. As we turned the corner, leaving my old life behind, I felt a surge of excitement for what lay ahead. The journey wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head-on. After all, I had fought the hardest battle of my life and won. Whatever challenges came next, I knew I had the strength to overcome them. The road stretched out before us, full of promise and possibility. And for the first time in years, I couldn't wait to see where it would lead.
I never thought a simple email would be the thing to unravel my entire life. But there it was, glowing on my husband's laptop screen at 2 a.m., while I was just trying to print out worksheets for my students. "My name is Harper, and until last night, I thought I had the kind of marriage other people envied. The kind where you finish each other's sentences and still laugh at inside jokes from your first date." Ethan and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5 of those. He was the guy who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday morning and never forgot to kiss me goodbye, even when he was running late for work. "Your flight confirmation for the Chicago conference next week," the email subject line read. Nothing unusual there. Ethan traveled frequently for work. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the way he'd been guarding his phone lately, or how he'd started working later and later. I clicked the email. The confirmation showed 2 seats. First class. I felt my stomach drop as I scrolled down and saw the hotel reservation. 1 room, king bed, 5 nights at the Drake Hotel. The booking was under Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, but I definitely wasn't the Mrs. Ellis going to Chicago. My hands were shaking as I opened his sent folder. Dozens of emails to someone named Vanessa Reed. The most recent one made me feel like I'd been punched in the gut. "Can't wait to hold you again. These stolen moments aren't enough anymore." I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly closed the laptop. Ethan appeared in the doorway of our home office, his hair messed up from sleep. "Everything okay, babe?" "It's late," he said, rubbing his eyes. I forced a smile. "Just printing some things for tomorrow's class." My voice sounded strange, too high-pitched. "Go back to bed." He nodded, stifling a yawn. "Don't stay up too late." "Love you." "Love you too," I replied automatically, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. After he left, I sat there in the dark, trying to make sense of it all. The Ethan I knew wouldn't do this. The Ethan I married wouldn't. But then again, maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my sister Chloe, then deleted it. What would I even say? Hey, guess what? Your brother-in-law's cheating on me with someone named Vanessa. It felt too raw, too real to put into words yet. Instead, I went through the motions of printing my worksheets. My students were counting on these for tomorrow's lesson on Romeo and Juliet. The irony wasn't lost on me, teaching teenagers about love and betrayal while my own marriage was apparently nothing but a carefully crafted lie. As I gathered my papers, a new email notification popped up on Ethan's laptop. From Vanessa Reed, missing you already. Dinner was perfect tonight. Tonight. While I'd been grading papers and making dinner for one because Ethan had texted that he was stuck in a late meeting, he'd been with her. I closed the laptop and went upstairs to our bedroom. Ethan was already asleep, looking peaceful and innocent. I stood there watching him breathe, remembering how just yesterday I would have crawled into bed and curled up against him without a second thought. Now I couldn't bear to touch him. I grabbed my pillow and headed to the guest room, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Who was Vanessa Reed? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? One thing was certain, Ethan's perfect little world was about to come crashing down. He just didn't know it yet. I made it through exactly 3 classes before breaking down in the faculty bathroom. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely text Chloe, "Need you. Can you meet for lunch?" The morning had been a blur of trying to act normal while my students discussed the tragic romance of Romeo and Juliet. Every time I heard the word love, I felt like throwing up. When Lucas, my colleague who taught in the classroom next door, asked if I was okay, I barely managed a nod. Chloe was already waiting at our usual cafe when I arrived. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. "Harper, you look like hell. What happened?" I opened my mouth to tell her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken of Ethan's emails. "That son of a bitch," Chloe whispered, her face darkening as she scrolled. "How long have you known?" "Found out last night." My voice cracked. "He's taking her to Chicago next week. 5 days at the Drake Hotel. On your anniversary weekend?" Chloe's knuckles went white around her coffee cup. "I'll kill him. The worst part is, he's acting completely normal. Made me breakfast this morning, kissed me goodbye like nothing's wrong." I stabbed at my untouched salad. "I don't even know who he is anymore." "Have you Googled her?" Chloe asked, already typing on her phone. "Vanessa Reed." Oh. Oh wow. What? She turned her phone toward me. There she was, young, gorgeous, smiling confidently in her corporate headshot. Vice President of Marketing at Ethan's company. My stomach lurched. "She's everything I'm not," I said quietly. "Stop that right now," Chloe snapped. "You're smart, successful, and way too good for him. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, "Having dinner with clients tonight. Don't wait up." Chloe read the message over my shoulder and swore. "Clients. Right. Want me to follow him?" "No," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "I have a better idea." That evening, I drove to Ethan's office building and parked where I could see the entrance. At 6:30, I watched him walk out with Vanessa. They weren't touching, but the way they looked at each other made my chest ache. I followed their car to an upscale restaurant across town. Through the window, I could see them at a corner table. No other clients in sight. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he used to hold mine. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan, "Meeting running late. Might grab drinks after." I took a picture of them through the window and sat there, staring at it. Part of me wanted to burst in and create a scene. Instead, I drove home and did something worse. I acted normal. I left his dinner in the oven, graded papers at the kitchen table, and waited. He came home at 11, smelling of expensive wine and wearing guilt like cologne. "Sorry I'm so late," he said, kissing my cheek. "These clients are demanding." "That's okay," I replied, gathering my papers. "How was the restaurant?" He froze for a split second, so brief anyone else might have missed it. "What restaurant?" "The one where you had your meeting." I kept my voice casual. "I drove by on my way to pick up groceries." "Looked nice." Another pause. "Oh, right. Yeah, it was good." I headed upstairs, leaving him standing in the kitchen. In our bedroom, I opened his closet and found the shirt he'd worn to work that morning. There was a smudge of red lipstick on the collar. Vanessa had been wearing red lipstick at dinner. I carefully hung the shirt back up and got into bed, my mind racing with possibilities. Ethan thought he was so clever, living his double life. But he had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start making some plans of my own. The credit card statement arrived 3 days before Ethan's planned trip to Chicago. I wasn't supposed to see it. He usually handled all the bills online, but this one came in the mail by mistake. Sitting at our kitchen table, I stared at charge after charge that told the story of his other life. Dinner for two at places we'd never been. A jewelry store purchase from last month, probably explaining the bracelet I'd spotted on Vanessa's wrist at the restaurant. Hotel charges from business trips that now made perfect sense. My hands were steady as I laid out the evidence on the table, the credit card statement, screenshots of emails, photos from the restaurant. Then I waited. When Ethan came home, he was humming. Actually humming. He stopped dead when he saw me sitting there. "We need to talk about your upcoming anniversary trip to Chicago," I said quietly. His face did something complicated, surprise, fear, then smooth confidence. "What are you talking about?" "Don't." I pushed the evidence toward him. "Just don't." He glanced at the papers, then at me, like a chess player calculating his next move. "Harper, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been fucking your vice president of marketing. Or how you've been spending our money taking her to 5-star hotels. It's not what you think." "Really?" I laughed, and it sounded strange even to my ears. "Because I think you're planning to spend our anniversary weekend with another woman." "Please, tell me how I'm misinterpreting that." He sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. "You've been so distant lately, always focused on your students, your lesson plans. When was the last time you actually paid attention to me?" The audacity of his words hit me like a physical blow. "So this is my fault?" "I didn't say that." He reached for my hand. I pulled away. "But relationships are a two-way street. Vanessa. She sees me. She understands the pressure I'm under. And I don't. I've supported you through every promotion, every late night, every weekend working. I've built my entire life around you. That's the problem." He stood up, pacing. "You've lost yourself in being my wife. You used to be fun, spontaneous. Now it's all about your work, your routine." I felt something snap inside me. "My work? I'm a teacher, Ethan. I shape young minds. What exactly do you do that's so important? Push papers and apparently your coworkers?" His face darkened. "See? This is exactly why." "Why what?" "Why you couldn't keep it in your pants. Why you had to destroy our marriage." "It's not destroyed unless you make it that way," he said, his voice softening. "We can work through this. I'll end it with Vanessa. We can go to counseling." I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. This man who could stand there, offering to fix things like he'd dented my car instead of shattering my entire world. "When did you stop loving me?" I asked. "I never. Because I stopped loving you about 2 minutes ago." The words came out calm, certain. When you tried to blame me for your choices. He reached for me again. Baby, please. I stepped back. Don't call me that. Don't touch me. In fact, don't come home tonight. Or tomorrow. I need time to think. This is my house too, he protested. The house that my inheritance helped buy? The one that's in both our names? Yeah, we'll see about that. Something ugly flashed across his face. You're being hysterical. Let's talk about this when you've calmed down. I am calm, I said, and I was. Eerily calm. But you should know, I sent copies of everything to my lawyer this morning. Just in case you were thinking of doing any creative accounting before your trip. He went pale. You're bluffing. I picked up my phone, showed him the email confirmation from the law firm. Enjoy Chicago, Ethan. I hope she's worth it. As I walked upstairs, I heard him calling after me, his voice tinged with panic. But I didn't turn around. Instead, I went to our bedroom and started packing his bags. The time for tears was over. Now it was time for war. The 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test felt like a cosmic joke. I sat on the bathroom floor of my sister's guest house, where I'd been staying for the past week. Staring at the little window that had just complicated everything. 3 tests. All positive. A knock on the door made me jump. Harper? You've been in there for 20 minutes, Chloe called out. I opened the door and wordlessly held up the tests. Chloe's eyes widened. Oh shit, she whispered. Are you sure? As sure as 3 different brands can make me. She sat down next to me on the bathroom floor. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna, having dinner with Ethan tonight. He's a mess. Says you're not answering his calls. What's going on? My stomach lurched, and not just from the morning sickness I now realized I'd been ignoring. Jenna, my supposed best friend, who'd introduced me to Ethan 8 years ago, was having dinner with him? Unbelievable, Chloe muttered, reading over my shoulder. Want me to tell her what her precious Ethan's been up to? No. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger. I'll do it myself. An hour later, I walked into the restaurant where Jenna had tagged herself on Instagram. They were sitting in a corner booth, their heads close together. Ethan's hand was on Jenna's arm. Well, isn't this cozy? I said, approaching their table. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Jenna's face flushed red. Harper. I was just trying to convince me to take him back. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of Ethan and Vanessa at dinner. Did he tell you about her? Or about the Chicago trip he's planning for their romantic getaway? Jenna's face crumpled. He said you were being paranoid. That you were making things up because you were jealous of his success. Of course he did. I turned to Ethan. You're good at that, aren't you? Spinning stories, making people believe whatever version of reality suits you best. Harper, please, Ethan stood up, reaching for me. Let's talk about this privately. Like how you privately discussed our marriage with Jenna. Or how you privately planned your affair with Vanessa. Other diners were starting to stare. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're making a scene, he hissed. No, you made the scene when you decided to destroy our marriage. I felt oddly calm, even as my world was imploding again. By the way, Jenna, you should know, he's been using the engagement ring fund we've been saving for your brother to pay for hotels with Vanessa. Jenna gasped. Her brother and his girlfriend had been waiting months for Ethan to make good on his promise to help them buy a ring. Is that true? She demanded. Ethan's silence was answer enough. I trusted you, Jenna whispered, gathering her things. I defended you to Harper. God, I'm such an idiot. She rushed past me, tears in her eyes. Ethan watched her go, then turned to me with fury in his eyes. Happy now? You've ruined everything. No, you did that all by yourself. I placed my wedding ring on the table. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce. Harper, wait. His voice softened, became pleading. We can fix this. Whatever you want, counseling, a fresh start, anything. For a moment, my hand drifted to my stomach. Should I tell him? Would it make a difference? But then I remembered how he'd blamed me for his choices, how easily he'd lied to everyone we knew. The thing is, Ethan, I don't want to fix this anymore. I want to be free of it. Of you. I walked out of the restaurant into the cool evening air, leaving him calling after me. My phone was already buzzing with messages, probably Jenna, maybe Ethan, possibly even Chloe checking on me. I ignored them all and drove to the drugstore instead. I needed prenatal vitamins. Whatever happened next, I had more than just myself to think about now. And I was done letting Ethan Ellis determine my future. The ultrasound screen showed a tiny flickering heartbeat. 8 weeks along, the technician said. I'd asked for the first appointment of the day, hoping to avoid running into anyone I knew at the hospital. Would you like a picture to take home? She asked. I nodded, thinking about the baby book my mother had kept for me, filled with ultrasound photos and milestone markers. This child's book would be different. No proud father smiling in the pictures, no joint announcements to family and friends. Lucas was waiting in the hospital cafe when I came down. He'd insisted on driving me after finding me throwing up in the faculty bathroom yesterday. Everything okay? He asked, sliding me a ginger tea. Yeah, it's. I pulled out the ultrasound photo, then quickly tucked it away as I spotted a familiar figure approaching, Vanessa Reed. Wearing a designer suit and a concerned expression that looked rehearsed. Harper, she said, stopping at our table. I'm glad I ran into you. We should talk. Lucas started to stand, but I grabbed his arm. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of my friend. She sat down uninvited, folding her manicured hands on the table. Ethan's a mess. He's not eating, barely sleeping. This situation is affecting his work. That must be inconvenient for you, I said, fighting another wave of nausea. He loves you, she insisted. What we had. It was a mistake. We've ended it. When? Before or after I caught you? She had the grace to look uncomfortable. I know you're hurt, but. No, I cut her off. You don't know anything about me. Just like you don't know anything about love. Love doesn't book hotel rooms behind someone's back. Love doesn't destroy families for fun. It wasn't like that, she protested. We never meant to. To get caught? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. Tell Ethan if he wants to discuss anything, he can talk to my lawyer. And Vanessa? That promotion you're up for? Good luck explaining the company's morality clause to the board. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. She hurried away, her heels clicking on the hospital floor. Lucas whistled low. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he said. I made it 3 steps before the dizziness hit. Lucas caught me as my knees buckled. I need to sit down, I mumbled. You need to eat something, he corrected, flagging down a nurse. 20 minutes later, I was back in an exam room, hooked up to N4 for dehydration. The doctor was frowning at my chart. Your blood pressure's concerning, she said. Have you been under unusual stress lately? I laughed until tears came. You could say that. Well, whatever it is, it needs to stop. This pregnancy is high risk now. You need rest, regular meals, and absolutely no drama. No drama. Right. I was about to text Chloe when my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. We need to talk. Coming to Chloe's tonight. Important. Don't do it, Lucas said, reading over my shoulder. Whatever he wants to say, it can wait. No, I said, touching the ultrasound photo in my pocket. It's time he knew. All of it. That evening, I sat in Chloe's living room, the ultrasound photo on the coffee table between us. Ethan stared at it, his face unreadable. "Is this some kind of joke?" he finally asked. "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing about our marriage." "A baby won't fix this, Harper." "I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm telling you because you have a right to know. What you do with that information is up to you." He stood up, running his hands through his hair. I can't deal with this right now. I have the Chicago trip, the merger." "And Vanessa?" I asked quietly. His silence was deafening. "Get out," I whispered. "Harper. Get out." As the door slammed behind him, I felt something inside me break. But this time, it wasn't my heart. It was the last thread of hope that the man I married still existed somewhere inside the stranger he'd become. The morning Ethan was supposed to leave for Chicago, I woke up to find my bank accounts frozen. All of them. Even my personal savings account from before our marriage. "He's trying to force you to talk to him," Chloe said when I called her, panic rising in my throat. "Don't give in." But I had bills to pay, prenatal vitamins to buy, and a lawyer who needed her retainer. I had no choice. I agreed to meet Ethan at our house, our former house. Walking in felt like stepping into a museum of my previous life. Family photos still hung on the walls, my coffee mug still sat by the kitchen sink, everything perfectly preserved like the moment I'd left. Ethan was waiting in the living room, looking immaculate in his business suit. "You're late. You're a bastard." I remained standing. "Unfreeze the accounts. After we talk." He gestured to the couch. "Please sit." "I'll stand." "Fine." He loosened his tie. "I've been thinking about the baby." "Don't." "We could try again," he continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Marriage counseling, a fresh start." "I'll cancel the Chicago trip." "Too late. I already sent the board of directors proof of your affair with a subordinate." His face darkened. "You what?" "They're reviewing it this morning. Probably why your phone's been buzzing for the last 5 minutes." He grabbed his phone, color draining from his face as he read the messages. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Exactly what you taught me to do, protect myself." "By destroying my career?" He stood up, hands clenched. "I built that company from nothing. And I built a life with you from nothing. Guess we're both losing things we care about." His laugh was ugly. "You think you're so clever? You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Actually, I do." I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. "I'm recording this conversation. Every threat, every attempt at manipulation. My lawyer's going to love it." "Your lawyer can't help you if you can't pay her." He stepped closer. "How long can you last without access to your money, Harper? A week? A month? How long can you last without your reputation?" I countered. "The board knows everything, the affair, the misused company funds, the fake expense reports. Even that business trip to Vegas that was actually a weekend with Vanessa." His hand shot out, gripping my arm. "You vindictive bitch. Let go of me." My voice shook, but I held my ground. "Or I'll add assault to the restraining order I'm filing tomorrow." The front door opened. Lucas stepped in, followed by Chloe. "Everything okay in here?" Lucas asked, his tone making it clear it wasn't really a question. Ethan released my arm, straightening his suit. "We're fine. Just having a private conversation." "Not anymore," Chloe said, moving to my side. "Harper?" I nodded, suddenly exhausted. "We're done here." "No," Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice. "We're not done until..." His phone rang. He glanced at it, swore, and answered. I could hear raised voices on the other end. While he was distracted, Lucas guided me toward the door. But Ethan's next words stopped me cold. What do you mean, suspended pending investigation? This is ridiculous, she's lying about everything. The pregnancy, the affair, all of it. The room spun. I grabbed Lucas's arm for support. What did you just say? I turned back to Ethan. He covered the phone. You heard me. You think you're the only one who can play dirty? I told the board you're mentally unstable, making up stories because I asked for a divorce. Including this convenient pregnancy. The pain started low in my abdomen, sharp and insistent. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. Harper? Chloe's voice seemed far away. You're bleeding. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was Ethan's face. Watching me fall with the same cold detachment he'd shown when I told him about our baby. Some things, I realized as consciousness slipped away, you can never take back. And some betrayals cut too deep to ever heal. The hospital room was too bright, too sterile. I woke to the steady beep of monitors and Chloe asleep in a chair beside me. My hands immediately went to my stomach. The baby's stable, a nurse said, appearing at my bedside. But you're on strict bed rest. No more stress. I almost laughed. No more stress. Right. There's someone insisting on seeing you, she continued. Your husband? We can send him away if you prefer. Before I could answer, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He looked wrecked, tie gone, shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Chloe jerked awake. Get out. Please, he said, his voice rough. 5 minutes. I nodded to Chloe. She squeezed my hand and left, but not before shooting Ethan a look that could have melted steel. He approached the bed slowly, like I was a wounded animal that might bolt. The doctor showed me the ultrasound. Now you believe me? Harper, He sat heavily in the chair. When they rushed you into emergency, there was so much blood. I thought. I realized. That I wasn't lying. My voice was steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. That maybe I wasn't the crazy, vindictive wife you painted me as to save your precious career? I got the call while you were in surgery. The board voted unanimously. I'm out. He laughed hollowly. Funny how none of that seems important anymore. Don't. I turned away. Don't pretend you've suddenly grown a conscience. It's not pretense. Seeing you collapse, knowing I caused this. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. You didn't just cause this, Ethan. You chose it. Every lie, every night with her, every attempt to destroy me, those were choices. I know. And I'm sorry. Please, let me try to make it right. For you, for the baby. There is no more of us, I cut him off. The man I married died the moment he chose another woman over his family. Harper. But you want to make it right? Fine. Here's how: sign the divorce papers. Release the accounts. Walk away. And the baby? Will know they have a mother who loved them enough to demand better than a father who only showed up when he had nothing left to lose. His face crumpled. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I'd fallen in love with, vulnerable, real. But then I remembered how easily he'd worn other masks before. I do love you, he whispered. No, you love the idea of me. The wife who made you look good, who supported your dreams while setting aside her own. But that woman's gone. The monitor's beeping increased. A nurse appeared, frowning at my vitals. I think it's time for you to leave, she told Ethan. He stood, straightening his shoulders. The accounts will be unfrozen by morning. I'll have my lawyer send over the signed papers. Goodbye, Ethan. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know, I said quietly. But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. After he left, Chloe and Lucas came back in. Lucas handed me a chocolate bar, my favorite kind. You okay? He asked. I touched my stomach, feeling the smallest flutter of movement. No. But I will be. The board called, Chloe said. They want to talk to you about Ethan's replacement. Apparently, they're impressed with how you handled everything. I don't want anything to do with that company. Maybe not, she smiled. But they're offering a pretty generous settlement to keep it that way. I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. The past weeks felt like a lifetime, each betrayal and confrontation leaving its mark. But for the first time, I could see beyond the pain, beyond the revenge. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. Sometimes it's about finding the strength to walk away and build something new from the ashes of what was lost. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. My baby girl kicked inside me, strong and steady, like she was reminding me we'd made it. The divorce papers had come through last week. Ethan signed everything without argument, including the generous settlement and support agreement. I heard through Jenna that he'd moved to Seattle for a fresh start. Vanessa had apparently moved to London. Good riddance to both of them. Earth to Harper, Chloe called from the kitchen. These boxes won't unpack themselves. I was sorting through the last box when I found it, my old wedding album. I'd forgotten I'd packed it. Want me to throw it out? Chloe asked, watching me carefully. No, I said, surprising myself. It's part of the story I'll tell her someday. About how her mom found her strength. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood there with takeout and paint samples. Thought you might want to start planning the nursery. He'd been doing that lately, showing up with just what I needed, exactly when I needed it. Not pushing, just being there. It scared me how much I'd started looking forward to his visits. Perfect timing, I said, letting him in. Though I should warn you, Chloe has strong opinions about color schemes. I heard that. Chloe called out. And I'm right about the yellow. As they playfully argued about paint colors, I opened my phone to a new email from Ethan. My heart didn't race anymore when I saw his name. I signed up for therapy, he'd written. Not to win you back, I know that's impossible. But because I need to understand why I destroyed the best thing in my life. I hope someday our daughter can know a better version of me than the man I was. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Some wounds need time to heal, and some stories don't have neat endings. Harper. Lucas was watching me, concern in his eyes. You okay? Yeah, I said, putting my phone away. Just thinking about endings and beginnings. Speaking of beginnings, Chloe interrupted, Lucas, tell Harper about that house for sale near the school. He shot her a look. I was going to bring that up naturally. What house? I asked. It's nothing, just. There's this craftsman with a great yard, perfect for kids. It's close to both our schools, and... He ran a hand through his hair. I know it's too soon, but maybe someday. The old me would have panicked at the hint of future possibilities. But I wasn't that person anymore. Tell me about the house, I said. Later that night, after they'd left, I sat in what would be the nursery, surrounded by paint samples and half-unpacked boxes. My daughter kicked again, and I placed my hand over the spot. You know what, little one? Sometimes the happy ending isn't the one you planned. Sometimes it's better. I picked up my phone and typed a final email to Ethan. I hope you find what you're looking for. She deserves to know both her parents found peace. Then I picked up my phone again and texted Lucas, about that house. When can we see it? The future stretched out before me, not perfect but full of possibility. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, desperately trying to hold on to a life that was already gone. I wished I could tell her that losing everything would lead to finding herself. But maybe that's the thing about rock bottom, you can't see the way out until you start climbing. And sometimes, just sometimes, what you build from the ruins turns out to be stronger than what fell apart. I looked at the paint samples scattered across the floor, each color representing a different possible future. Tomorrow, I'd start painting. Tonight, I just breathe, grateful for endings that make way for new beginnings.